Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you were able to get your sound all figured out today. We'll go to the next slide, Andrea. Okay, so just a quick Zoom, quick reference. Hopefully you're all very familiar with Zoom now. Oh, look at that. Awesome. So again, we've got the mute button. Just make sure that you keep yourself off mute unless you're talking. And if you do come off mute, just make sure you introduce yourself and which PCN you're from. Video, we love to see people's faces. We understand that it's lunchtime though. So if you're eating, no problem. And if you are not muted, we can mute you. So we do have that power. And there is the chat. So we will be monitoring the chat throughout the session. So we will address any questions that you put in there, any comments that you have. For today's session, we are going to try to get through all of the planned questions that we have for TELUS first, and then we'll address any additional questions after that. We just want to make sure that we think we're going to cover a lot of your questions during Andrea and Susie's presentation. So we'll wait to the end for questions from you. And we love reactions. So if there's anything that you're really happy about that Andrea and Susie are sharing, make sure that you share that with us using the reactions. And next slide. Okay, this is showing you how to use the chat. Hopefully everyone knows how to use the chat by now. If you want to just speak with me, you can use the host only option. Otherwise, you'll be chatting with everyone. And I see Tara, yes, this will be recorded. So we'll be putting it up on YouTube for later. Next slide, Andrea. Okay, so Rhonda, I'll let you introduce today's topic.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rhonda Ryder, practice facilitator with Mosaic PCN, and I am the co-host with Sarah Joy. Almost a year now, Sarah Joy. We've been doing these lovely talks. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. We have two special guests with us. We're going to be talking about migration tips and tricks with TELUS, and you can advance.
Yeah, and just a disclaimer before we get to that. So we as AMA Act cannot promote a single vendor or a single EMR product. So by having Andrea and Susie here, we're not as ACT or AMA promoting TELUS per se as an EMR product. But we do know that you had tons of questions, and it being the Wolf EMR user group, we thought it was appropriate to bring Andrea and Susie in as they're working with a lot of the Wolf or all of the Wolf clinics that need to migrate.
That's a great point. Thank you so much, Sarah Joy, for adding that. And yes, we heard you loud and clear. You have questions. They have answers. So if you are sitting near a window, please take this moment to glance out as we do our land acknowledgement. We would like to recognize that we are webcasting from and to many parts of Alberta today, and the province of Alberta is located on Treaty 6, 7, and Treaty 8 territory, and is a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous people. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Slide?
Yes, please. And like I said earlier, we are recording. This is only for us though, so we'll put it on our YouTube channel, but we won't be broadcasting it more broadly than that. So please ask away any questions or comments that you have. We would love to hear all of those. Okay, and hopefully you all know who we are by now, but I am Sarah Joy Karth. I'm a consultant with the AMA ACT team, and Rhonda, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes, and I've already introduced myself, and I know we're speeding me through because the real people are coming to chat here. You didn't come to see me.
Oh, and I guess we have an annotate activity. I forgot about this. So if you go up to the view options at the top and click on annotate, and you can use either text or a stamp. A stamp is probably better. I see Rebecca's figured it out. Perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah, awesome. I think the next slide, if you want to advance, Andrea, is which of the following best describes your role? So who do we have on the call today? Do we have some physicians? Do we have some MOAs? Do we have others? And if we have others, could you pop in the chat what your role is so we can make sure to address you next time? Look at all those practice facilitators and panel managers. Oh, yes. Wonderful.
Yeah, a couple
And then
clinic
Heidi.
managers.
Heidi down there waving by herself.
That could be
Oh,
Heidi with longer straight hair.
Yeah.
yes, and clinic managers. Good.
Wonderful. Lots of variety.
That is
EMRC.
really cool. I've never seen this before. That's cool.
Referral coordinator. Hello, Tara. Hi, Anchor.
No worries, Denise. So we have another clinic manager. That's great.
Drake, Denise Drake. I know Denise Drake.
Yes,
I saw
Well,
Linda.
that's wonderful. All right.
Shall I?
so I think it's on to you now.
This is us. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrea Collins, and I'm the manager of sales for TELUS Health in Western Canada. I wanted to represent myself two ways. There's the work Andrea, looking, well, that's when I had hair. Last week I went for a haircut, worst haircut of my life. And then there's me on the other side, which is me in my natural habitat, which is walking the trails of Bowen Island. So I've been with TELUS, I guess, 10 years, but I was employee number 3 at Wolf about 1 billion years ago. So we were acquired, as you know, in 2012 by TELUS, and I moved into the management position in 2015. And continue to focus primarily on Western Canada. For a period of time, we also had Atlantic Canada. And a lot of our work obviously comes out of BC and Alberta. And right now, with everything going on in the transition, it's mostly Alberta. Last week, I was on the road for the first time in over 2 years. And of course, my first place to go was Calgary, because in those early days of Wolf, I pretty much lived in Calgary. I was there every single week. And it was a lot of fun because I walked into clinics of people I haven't seen in a long time, but that frankly I've known longer than my husband. And it was just like coming home. It was a big welcome greeting. And Denise, I'm sorry I didn't make it to your clinic. I shouldn't tell people I was there last week, should I? And that's me. Over to you, Susie.
Hi, everyone. So I come as well from the Wolf world. Definitely not employee number 3, but I was hired in 2009 by Wolf, and actually by Andrea, and the manager at the time. And then, of course, acquired by TELUS in 2012, and been there ever since. So a little bit of change over the years with my portfolio, going from just selling EMR to EMR and telco, to now mainly EMR, and of course this is the new CHR. So I've had, I definitely see some names on here that are very familiar to me, either through meeting or over email, especially in the last couple of years. But yeah, I've been the account manager now since I've started, and excited to have this go through this presentation and hear what everyone has to say.
Thanks, Susie. Yeah, Susie was hired December 2009 to be my maternity coverage. So I always remember how long she's been with us based on how old my son is. And then of course she stayed, because I had this wonderful idea that when I came back after having kids, I wouldn't travel anymore and I wouldn't go into sales, but that lasted a year and then I was back and on the road again. So just to reiterate some of the information you've heard before, we finally got some notifications out again in the fall, and I do apologize on behalf of TELUS on how long it took to get some formal communication out. But we will be sunsetting the Wolf system this end of December 2023. I'm surprised how many people call and think we're doing it in like a month or two. You've got lots of time. So if you haven't made a decision yet, you do have time for sure. Now it's currently a hard stop, end of December 2023. But as you are probably all very aware, we have not yet launched CHR as an option in the Alberta market yet. So I would expect this could be delayed a bit. We'll see. Okay. So we continue to test with CHR in Alberta, working with Alberta Health Services, and the AMA. on rolling out the different components of the platform that need to pass some testing before we can actually go live in your region. If you have any questions and you want to have a look at what we've done so far, then certainly reach out to us, either Susie and I directly or at the healthsales@telus.com email address that's there. This time last year, a lot of people were moving forward and signing contracts because we had wonderful offers in the market, but we didn't really have a fulsome product for the Alberta market specifically to show you. So a lot of change has happened in the platform in the last year. And we fully expect that people are going to want to have second or third demos. So please do reach out to us. We also do have recorded demos if you want to see those instead. Okay, so end of May, and Heidi, you might have more up-to-date numbers than me, but as of this morning when I checked in, we are still targeting our beta sites for May to start testing the platform. We've chosen clinics in conjunction with the work with Alberta Health Services and AMA, what that portfolio looks like. So we want to make sure we have clinics from all over the province, not just a specific region. We had lots of people put up their hands and offer to be pilot sites or beta sites, but really the criteria didn't work for everybody. So we just have a select few. Then we plan to do our limited rollout end of summer, early fall. And I would expect regular clinics would be late 2022. But when you see the number of people waiting, there are people that are signed up and ready to go that will roll into 2023 at this point. Now, I'll get into that in a second. Before I go into the next slide, I just want to also let you know that you are welcome to go MedAccess. So we have been told that MedAccess is a viable option. Our VP has said that we will not sunset the platform, but his expectation is he'll make the CHR so awesome that everybody's going to want to migrate to it anyways. And his expectation is that the price point will be lower than MedAccess, but we shall see. Right now, if we have net new clinics that want to go live in the next few weeks, they're typically buying MedAccess and we're implementing MedAccess. If you're on MedAccess, well, none of you would be because you're a Wolf user group, but people on MedAccess have been assured that we won't force march them either. Okay, so if you've heard that rumor in the market, probably we were the ones that started it because we weren't sure in January of last year what our plan was. So I want to assure everyone that that is still a viable option. I've seen this happen though. I mean, in my time at TELUS, we've had 9 different EMRs across the country and we've sunset various platforms. And I would expect that when we're down to the core 4, which would be CHR is number 1, MedAccess, Practice Solutions, and MediSync in Quebec, you'll see that majority of the attention will probably go to CHR. So we will continue to build and support on the other platforms, but CHR is the one that's going to get all the sexy new features and functionality. Okay. Now for today's meeting, all the questions that came in were primarily focused around implementation and training and data migration. So although you've got Susie and I here, there was a wonderful host of people that answered the questions for you today for us to share with you. So Gord Shimbashi, you might all remember, or some of you might remember from his past days. He's our manager of implementation. We had Mike Redicop, who has also done the EMR jump from Genoki to MedAccess to TELUS. He runs our training team. We had Patrick McCollin, who runs our data migration team. Jake, who runs our professional services. He's a professional service engineer. All of them did chime in to help answer the questions that you sent us. And as Sarah Joy knows, as I was going through the questions, some of them seemed a little repetitive. They're the same question asked slightly differently, but all of them come around to this picture I'm showing you now. And it's really about everyone's concerns and questions around what a migration looks like end to end. So instead of sharing with you the 26 slides that Gord sent me on the implementation planning, I thought I'd just find one little slide to kick it off for you. Gord did say I can share that deck, so I will send it over to Sarah Joy and Rhonda, but it gives you a templated look at what your project would look like. So number 1, you have an assigned project manager. So these are professionals that do project management and will handhold you all the way through the process. So they're the key point of contact. They will bring in everybody from everywhere as needed as questions come up for you. They're your person, okay? Now, with that said, you can always reach out to Susie and I as well, but they are, and they're the smart ones. Then we start the planning and the preparation. So through this part of the process, there will be a clinical needs assessment done. So this is when the PM pulls in the learning specialist, and the learning specialist works with the clinic to understand what kind of templates you have, what kind of templates you need, what kind of data is going to need to be transferred over. They pull in the data specialists to have a look at the first run of the data as it comes through. Well, that's the next one, I guess. Through the, we're going to answer the questions specifically as we go through, but the data migration specialists, they take a pull of your data, they run it through our system, they have a look at it, they do a test with you to see what you think, you compare, then they'll pull a final test. So you have clinical, what do they call those guys? They have a very special name too, I'm sure, but they'll help you sort of analyze the gaps and things like that too. Then you start planning your go live, which is doing a custom training plan, dates for the migration, the final migration, and the go live days. Next would be, well, prior to go live, we'll also be doing the hardware and the installation. So somebody asked about network, for example, and we'll talk about that more specifically. You no longer need to buy hardware through us. In the old POSP days, that was part of the package, is you had to actually get network and hardware from us. You no longer do. So we'll support facilitating getting the hardware that you need into the clinic, and then go live. Oh, look, see, people put hearts there. They're really excited about that part. Now we're going to jump into these questions. So the clinic migrates to a non-TELUS EMR. Will TELUS charge the clinic for the data migration? Yes, there's a $1,500 charge per provider to export your data. That includes two, a test export for the other vendor and a final export, okay? How much time should a clinic dedicate to the migration process? I would suggest that you start, if you need to, cleaning up your data now, okay? So if you have a patient panel cleanup that needs to be done, sort of looking within your group how you're using different fields. Like, are you all using the first name for the first name, or is that the person's dog's name? Like, just trying to find some consistency in how you're currently using your system. The calls with your data migration team typically last about an hour. And that's the case where you're sitting there side by side looking at the data in Wolf right now versus CHR or MedAccess. You know, let's look at Andrea Collins. Let's look at her medications. How's it look here? How's it look there? Okay, and you see where you might find some gaps. And then you'll have 1 week of homework, they call it, where on your own, you're gonna kind of take some time to validate the data yourselves. They'll give you a checklist to go through, and you wanna make sure that if you see any mapping gaps or anything like that. Now, you don't wanna go live until you're comfortable with the way the data is looking, okay? So you can hold that in your court, that, yep, that looks good, let's go forward. Or you might think, no, I'm not ready for that dog's name to be in the first name field, whatever it might be, okay? You will work with your project manager and your data migration team to get to that point. Now, for each of these slides, I have lots of notes below as well, which I can't see anymore, so I will be sharing them with you guys, and you can, everyone on this call can look through, look at the written answers I have for each one, and ask me if you have any further questions. Okay, we sort of started to talk about this part of the migration. So the initial extract to go live, your average is 12 to 16 weeks. Okay, so we're currently booking in August and September right now for extracts and imports. Used to be 8 to 12 weeks, but we are very busy and very backlogged right now. Although Alberta is somewhat on hold with the CHR implementation and testing to be done, other markets are still very, very hot. So CHR has been sold in BC and Manitoba for a long time. And we have lots going on in Saskatchewan with MedAccess as well right now. If you want to export to another vendor, we will send the export to them, and then we're pretty much done. There's a lot of communication that will go on, and we will CC you and your other vendor, and they typically CC us and you on the responses until everything's been finalized. If we're doing the import, the timing is about the same. It's just a little bit more involved. Obviously, the work that you would do with another vendor is the kind of work you would be doing with us instead. Oh, I just answered that. So yes, we do communicate with them. We know them all by name. They know all of us by name. So we will work closely with the other vendors to make sure that you're getting your data. Okay. I think though we need to be careful on what kind of timelines are shared across different vendors, because it's dependent on the export. So when I know you're all Wolf people, but when we're onboarding people from another vendor, we can't really say it's 12 to 16 weeks, because it really depends when we get the data from the other vendor. And if they're booked out 12 to 16 weeks, then we get the data from them. It's going to delay the implementation for sure. Okay. Yes, we do. So does TELUS provide read-only access to the clinic's old EMR? So yes, if you're TELUS to TELUS, it's free for 6 months. And if you're going to a competitor, it's $100 per month per provider. Now, I only learned something through these questions that I hadn't recognized before when someone asked me what format it's in. So apparently with Wolf, you just have a free-for-all. You still have full-on access. You can do everything you do now in it. We don't have any way to lock stuff down, but please don't. Because if you start putting data in Wolf after the cutoff and the go live, you will not get that data out, okay? Unless you want to pay $1,500 per doctor again. And then you have to do this work to merge all the data. So you have full-on access, just don't put anything in there, okay? With Med Access, we're able to shut down labs, shut down billing, shut down charting, so that you don't have that concern that someone might inadvertently put something in the old EMR before it's transitioned, okay? Is there a checklist? Oh, I've got so many notes on this one. There is a checklist, but it changes daily because we're constantly upgrading the tools that we use to migrate data dependent on the vendor. Okay, so we have a really good tool from Wolf to Med Access. Not 100%. Nobody is 100%. If any vendor tells you this is easy and that we do 100% of your data, I would definitely question them, because it's not easy and it's never 100% of your data. And if it is 100% of your data, maybe it's not where you think it might be, or it's saved as a PDF or something like that. So our tools that we use, this is Patrick McCullen's world, it's constantly being updated. We have lots and lots of new product people, both for developing the product, the user interface, and the data migration tools. But there is a checklist, okay? It just is changing all the time. What won't be migrated? Some examples. Historically, we would have issues bringing over your future calendar. So I always said, don't worry, that's great. I mean, I remember Denise training at your clinic almost 18, 19 years ago, and we used it as a training tool. So it was everyone was on paper, mind you, back then, but we would use it as an opportunity to train how to do scheduling in the clinic. Okay, same idea here. Historical billing doesn't typically get pulled over, but it can sometimes too. The most recent issue we found with migrating to QHR, for example, has been the prenatals. And they don't go over because the Wolf ones are, I don't know what the details around it. I think it's the data, the way it goes into QHR, it just doesn't work. So for a big clinic in BC, we did PDF extracts of all the prenatal records. And that's one way to get around some of this stuff, is just have PDF information attached to a patient's chart. I remember years and years ago doing the South Calgary Medical Clinic, which was on Clinicare, and we just got to the point where that's pretty much what they did, is they just had a PDF attached to every patient's chart that was their Clinicare life versus their Wolf life, okay? Again, tips to make things go easily, sort of clean up your panel, be engaged. If you can, have a dedicated lead in the clinic. Okay, so we have a dedicated lead for you. We have a project manager that's assigned to you. If you have someone that is going to own this from your clinic's end, it'll be much more successful, better communication, and someone that we can actually connect with. It's actually usually harder in really small clinics where there's not a dedicated person, where perhaps a physician's trying to do all of this plus be a physician. And those are sometimes the hardest ones, because we do need to have communication with the clinics. What migration challenges have you encountered so far? I think we talked a bit about it already with the data. This is what Patrick gave me, is every clinic uses their sources systems differently. We talked about that. If I use field A for this and you use it for that, that's a problem. There may be variances in the data that we have not come across yet. So the more the client is engaged, we talked about that too, have a dedicated person that works on this, the more likely they are to be confident with the outcome, okay? But honestly, I think as an organization, I think we're doing a really good job every day, and there's always room for improvement, but we're doing a good job every day on improving our data migration tools, improving the differences in the platforms, perceived gaps, where, how is it in Wolf versus CHR and MedAccess? We're getting better at that. But I think the key element that really includes all of you, and we need to also be there to handhold you, is just change management. Like, I don't know about you guys, but we're going from Outlook to Google next week, and I'm terrified. Like, change is hard. And I think that everybody would agree. Well, not everybody. Some people maybe love change, but majority of the people in the clinics I've worked with over the last 20 years, change is not easy. And the more that we can help answer questions for people prior to go live, the more that people's fears or concerns are addressed prior to go live, the better your implementation is going to go. And certainly we can help there as well. Your PMs, Susie and I, between the two of us, we've probably helped implement, obviously hands off a bit, but thousands and thousands of doctors over the years. So we can bring some of our experience and understanding to the conversation as well if you need it. Number 9. So this one was a new one that got updated. Can you show us the following data? So I had a little asterisk there because in my notes, it tells you what you were asking me. But I was asked, what's the backlog? How many people have migrated, period? How many people have churned out, we call it, so left for other vendors, and how many are in the backlog? So I have the details in the slide notes again, but for high level for you right now, our current backlog is we have 117 physicians in Alberta that have signed to go to MedAccess, waiting to migrate. We have 958 that have signed to go to CHR that are in the backlog, waiting to migrate, for a total of 1,075 physicians in Alberta that have signed a contract to move off of Wolf to one of our platforms. We have 424 physicians that have not yet decided which way they're going to go. Okay, so there's still quite a few people left, but you can see too, there's also a massive backlog. All right, and somewhere in there is a number that shows how many have left us, because we have, whenever any vendor makes some sort of massive change like this, it's a wonderful opportunity for their competitors to jump all over the clinics. And we see that. I mean, I talk to clinics that hear from our competitors every day. Please feel free, if you hear stuff from our competitors, to reach out if you need any validation. They're all pretty good. When the MedAccess rumor was out there and our competitors jumped all over it and put it in their emails, you better change now because they're getting rid of MedAccess too. I contacted my friend over at QHR and said, can you just stop putting that in your emails now? Because that's not true. I know it was our fault initially, but it's not true. And they were very cool about making sure it wasn't in their communications anymore. Okay. So I have pretty good open communication with those guys. Don't really know some of the new players at all, but please feel free to validate with us. And I understand that in absence of much written communication, that we've left it to you guys and our competitors to decide to fill in what the narrative is. And that's on us. So please do reach out if you have any questions or concerns. Will we have online training sessions to help users migrate? When will these be available to the clinic? Yes, we do. We have lots and lots. And again, in the notes, there's links that you can have a peek at. But we usually send it out 8 to 6 weeks prior to go live. So as soon as we have your instance stood up, you can actually start playing in it and looking at the online videos that are there and poking around in the system yourself. We are looking to set up a sandbox. I'm not a big fan of sandboxes because typically they're set up prior to any training and certainly any configuration for your clinic or your group. But there's a couple of groups that we're looking at setting up a sandbox for now, and with that caveat, to go play in and see what the system looks like for them. Okay, so if we do a province-wide one, let me know if you're interested and we can get you some sign-on. So we no longer are required to provide hardware, as I said, or network for your clinics. You're welcome to now to source it on your own, opposed to the past days when, again, it was needed to come through us. The project managers will help you with that. They usually need about 4 weeks prior to go live, and they'll hold your hand. They'll help you find the appropriate ISP provider for your region and connect with those people to set up the clinic itself, okay? And that was the end of my stuff. And now, Sarah, Joy, we're on to yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea. And thank
No
you for all
worries.
the questions in the chat. We'll get to those at the end here. But this is a reminder about the Wolf resources page. So I've highlighted here with the blue arrow, the recording from tips from clinics who have switched EMR. So that was when we had 3 guest speakers from clinics who had switched from Wolf to another EMR, shared their tips and tricks for migrating. So check that one out. Also come back here a little later, probably next week. I'll make sure that we add the slide deck notes to this section, so you'll have them on here. And next slide. Perfect. Thanks, Andrea. So this is a reminder, the EMR supports page on the ACT website. We have virtual care EMR guides here. So these were updated in March of this year. So go check those out. We used to have the old ones on there were about a year old. So these have more up-to-date information in them. And next slide. Perfect. And this is a reminder, please don't forget to sign up for the Wolf discussion board notifications. This is how we send you information about upcoming user group meetings and where you can share information with other people in the network, ask questions. It's a great way to connect with other people on the user group. So please sign up for those if you have not yet.
Can I sign up?
Yeah, sure. You'll have to register for the network, but yes.
All right, perfect.
Okay. Okay, on to the exciting part. Let's get to your questions. So what was the first question here? So Denise asked about, do follow-up tasks migrate from Wolf to other vendors?
Oh, trust Denise to ask me a hard question. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask Denise. Susie, do you mind taking note of the questions that I can't answer, please?
Yep, already done.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll send out all the questions that we can't answer. We'll send the answers out later once we have them. Awataf from Calgary Foothills PCN is asking, when transferring over from one EMR to another, will items be put in the correct spot? So for example, vaccines, PAPs, mammos, etc.
Well, that's the hope and expectation. That's our goal for you and for us. And that's why we have these validation sessions. So as discussed, we will do validation with you, and with each one, we learn what maybe needs tweaked in the tool. So the tool does the bulk of it, and then we do a lot manually based on your feedback. So we pretty much will discover that as we go through each and every single clinic's migration.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. And Teresa's asking, so the data slide that you had about the number of, she's wondering if it was physicians or clinics.
See, that's what I updated. So let's go to that one, because initially Gord gave me clinics and I'm like, No. So my numbers were the number of providers. Board has number of clinics, but he included BC, which I don't think you really care about. And it's everyone, just to be clear, this is family practice and specialists. Okay, so number of clinics have migrated to another TELUS EMR. I chose September 1st, 2020, because that's when we made the announcement we were sunsetting Wolf. That's why I went that far back. And we have 51 clinics. The number of Wolf clinics have migrated to another non-TELUS EMR, again, since September 1st, 2020. Again, Alberta and BC, that's 46 clinics. And the clinics in the queue to migrate to another TELUS EMR, 179. Again, that's clinics, and we've got some big ones in the numbers I've shown you. And then he's got a number of clinics not signed up, 230. So you can see it's a lot of smaller clinics, right? Because we got 424 providers and 230 clinics. Thank you. That allowed me to jump into my notes.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. If there are any other questions, you can raise your hand and come off mute to ask them.
I don't know if anyone wants to see some of these notes, but let's.
I don't think it would hurt. So absolutely.
So more details here. Clean up your data. We talked about that. So Billy Joe Gallett, who works on the data migration team as well, gave me all this information here, which basically outlines the steps. But if you want more details, she can give us information on termination PDF, project scope, timeline approval. I mean, there's so many steps to all of this. We have tons of documentation behind each one. So I'll leave it with you when I send it over, Sarah Joy and Rhonda, decide, do you want more details on any of these things? What can I do, okay, to help get that information? Next one. Yeah, we talked about that, which was this, do we have much engagement with the clinic? Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about all that. Yeah, we covered all that. Ooh, I did pretty good not having my notes. Yeah, we talked about that. I think I used the same one. We did that one. Ooh, this is on the training and stuff. So Mike had lots to say. For any of you that know Mike, he's incredibly funny. Quick story. I remember he used to always send out summaries after the completion of each training of a clinic. So we'd all get an idea of how things went in the clinic. So he sent out this email. Sally was very attentive, and Sally's piercing blue eyes were always staring at me, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, was someone hitting on Mike while he's at a clinic? At the very end, it's like, Sally loves long walks in the park, chasing after a ball and running a lot. She's a border collie. It was really quite sweet. Very nice man, knows his stuff very, very well, and he will work 24/7 for you guys. So he gave me this lengthy bit of an update with links to different online videos. So in addition to learning videos, each clinic will have a dedicated learning specialist that is assigned to them throughout the duration of their implementation project. The learning specialist will conduct pre-training sessions with the clinic super users with a focus on configuration about 2 to 3 weeks prior to go live. 1 week prior to go live, the learning specialist will also conduct remote learning sessions with the end users at the clinic, providing them with the necessary foundation for their go live. After the site is live, the learning specialist will conduct additional remote post-go live learning sessions, setting our client up for optimal success. Okay, so they don't disappear either. They'll be there for follow-up.
Andrea, can I interrupt you just a moment? So
You
sorry.
may. Yeah, go for it.
Questions came in, and I just think we're on the topic right now. So the first one is from Heidi. Is on-site training an option? And it looks like you addressed that one there. And then I see Amanda has her hand raised. So
well, let's go to Heidi's first quickly. Okay, so I did address it there, but absolutely the lean is towards doing remote. Over the last 2 years of the pandemic, all training was done remote, and it was pretty good. I don't think it's ever as good as on-site, but it was it was pretty good. We still stood up a number of clinics in 2 years during COVID. So I think that the best answer for that is that you need to actually request if you prefer on-site training. And you know what, when Heidi asks me questions, I feel like she already knows the answer, so it's quite terrifying. Amanda?
Yeah, I put my question in the chat there, but I'm just wondering if there's any guides or on what we need to clean up as far as the EMR data and the panels.
There's a checklist that they apparently have. I haven't seen the checklist, but I know in BC, for example, what the PCN panel management team is doing is they're actually reaching out to clinics that are in the transition stage and just helping them with panel cleanup as a first step. I would highly recommend clearing up any billing, like billing that's on hold, billing that's been potentially declined, anything that needs fixed in your billing. I'd do that before you do a migration. But I'd have to get a checklist for you, Amanda, just to confirm. Okay, I can send that to these guys as well.
And there's a question here in the chat about whether or not you can send the training links in the comments here in the chat.
I want to just check something quickly. I want to make sure that I'll send it in the chat. You guys let me know if you can get in or if this is once you're already, where's chat on mine? There's chat. I don't know if this is once you're in input or if these are ones you can access. I just put it in the chat. I'm trying to open it now. Let me see if it works.
I was able to get in, so I think it's good.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Thanks, Andrea.
Please don't share that with our competitors. Guys. Please.
Yeah, and that's a good point, actually, that slide deck that you'll share with all the details about the implementation process, that's not for wider distribution. So if I share it with you, just keep it within your clinic.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Teresa Cook. So that's a really good question. So you'd be considered for
Sorry, Andrea, it looks like you're muted there.
I didn't even touch my screen. Somebody's had enough of me. So Teresa's question, around 20 or 3 providers, but sorry, hold on. We have approximately 20 providers, but only 3 of those are physicians. Okay, so we need to define what the other 17 are. Are they allied health? If so, what type of allied health? So there is a licensing structure based in CHR. We don't bill based on physician versus allied health versus staff. It's invoiced based on what parts of the program you use. So are you billing? Then you're CHR plus, we call it, okay? In Med Access, that it is defined as provider versus allied health. And frankly, it's similar criteria. And so we'd have to look at who those other providers are. Ultimately, though, for your training, we want to know how many people total in your clinic, because everybody's going to need trained, not just your providers. And we consider one group is 5. So do we need another trainer because you have 7 people in there, as an example? So absolutely, we want to know the total number of people in a clinic. 2 new ones.
And while we're waiting for new questions, I'm just wondering if people have specific questions after this, should they reach out to your emails, Andrea and Susie? Or
yeah, and you can phone me. I might not always be able to pick up, but as Susie knows, my inbox gets slammed and I'm sometimes better at text or phone calls. So please feel free to try by email. But my phone number has not changed in 20 years.
I was actually going to say, yeah, absolutely feel free to call me or Andrea, but I will say for questions, I do prefer them in an email just because it's nice to have to go back and just have them documented as well. So
She doesn't get as many emails as me, apparently. Susie, what's your
so
number
busy.
again? Seven.
I'll add it in. I'll add it in.
Okay. Gentle reminder, that probably wasn't me. Me.
Yeah, I think
I
we've
think you
covered
got
all
them
of
all,
them.
Andrea. When you went for your Calgary trip here recently, were there any questions you were asked that we didn't ask today that maybe you can give us some info?
Pretty much this, actually, you guys had way more questions than what I found when I was on site in clinics. A lot of questions around timing. When are we gonna be able to do this? A lot of questions around, well, what are we gonna do in the meantime if we're having issues with Wolf right now? So you know what, guys, if you're slated to go next month, if you're having issues with Wolf, still get help. If you're having, like this one clinic is a really, really big clinic and they were having some slowness issues. Like, don't just gloss over it and think, well, at some point I'm moving to Med Access or CHR, so I'll just wait. There's no point in continuing to go through the pain. Please let us know. And if you're not getting the support you need from the support team, we have client service managers that are tasked to escalate. If you don't know how to get to your client service manager, again, come to Susie or I. As I've said for 20 years, I might not always have the answers, but I can always find the people. So please feel free to bug us and well, you're not bugging us, I shouldn't say that, but to poke us and we'll find you some help, okay? I don't know if any of you remember Karen Lakota, but Karen's been with TELUS, I think 18, 19 years as a Wolf person as well. And she knows Wolf inside out and backwards. She knows Med Access inside out and backwards now too. And over the last year, she's dug really deep into the CHR. And she's a wonderful resource for helping people understand the differences in the programs, but also figuring out Wolf stuff. So she'll go rogue and she'll just go find people in development or whatever. As Heidi knows, we have to become certified in Alberta for CHR. We've been asked to clean up some workflow issues for Wolf and Med Access and CICPAR. So Karen's been roped in to do it because she knows it the best. And she's grabbing James Cox and Peter and all these different people across the organization to make sure that we have it fixed and set up properly for testing, which I think might have been today, actually. So yeah, please let us know. Awesome. For a while there, we had a rogue project that we called Wolf 2.5 or something, like a 1.5. Not quite there, but we're halfway, where we targeted specific clinics like the Tabor Clinic, Calio Health. I think there was some work with Peak, Synergy up in Edmonton, where we put together a little group of old Wolf people and we addressed some slowness issues, and they're all really big clinics. So Karen would literally go on site and sit with you as the user and have James Cox mirroring what you're doing back in our office to see, where's the click that slowed you down, for example. Or it could be just, even after 20 years on Wolf, the system itself changed dramatically over the years, right? Maybe if you got trained 20 years ago, you never had any training again. So she might be able to show you a tip or a trick on how to use it better.
Awesome. I don't see anything else in the chat. So it seems like we've answered all of your questions and I see hearts on the screen. So hopefully this gave you lots of good information to take away and get you started on the migration process. And like we said, reach out to Andrea and Susie. Andrea, phone preferred, Susie, email preferred.
Actually, I'd like to come on site, preferably. I see Glenda and Denise and old names from a long time ago. I'd love to see you guys. I don't see everybody though.
And Andrea, can you just go back to the slide that you had of the plan for transition where it had those steps? I think a few people just wanted to take a screenshot of that. Going to be going back to their teams, really talking about 12 to 16 months of planning we have here. Let's hit the ground running. What can we do? And for just a reminder, the recording for this will be available on the discussion board. Feel free to copy that link of the recording, send it to clinic managers, send it to practitioners, send it to MOAs, anybody that is doing this transition and needs support. That was the purpose of today.
Yeah.
So
thank
just
you.
quickly, like I know we have a couple minutes left. This is the template that I can share too, that your PM would take you through. And you can see that what we did today is nothing compared to what you're going to get into. So this is an example. They put in your clinic name, who your dedicated project manager is, your learning specialist, like all the people on this screen are all the people that would support your clinic. Okay. And then we talk about the types of services that you have. Like, what do you do? Are you specialist or family practice? Are you walk-in? Do you have PCN staff working in your clinic? And then we go through the project breakdown. So this actually mirrors the old POSP milestone 1 through 5, and we sort of mimicked that through these phases as well. Then we start going through the high level timelines. So what happens through the course of this? And then again, project deliverables. Number 1, workflow review, analysis and design, configurations. You know, there's a checklist for you for some of the stuff that needs to come through. Training delivery, enterprise training approach, pre and post go live support, communication approach. So you have weekly pre-booked meetings, you have design and workflow checklists. Then we have a dashboard that shows how we are doing on our systems to support you through this transition and where we're at. What's the success factors? How do we measure success for you guys? That's what you tell us. Was we promote the awareness? Did we do a good job with the change and the adoption, the workload, the super users, the dedicated learning? More success factors. And then we move into next steps. So you will go through all of this with your project manager, and it's designed, each slide will be designed based on your clinic and your clinic's needs. Sorry to sneak that in there, guys.
No problem. And I see Heidi has her hand up.
Andrea, that's great. I was just wondering if it would be possible to add CICPAR as defined steps in that information gathering piece to say, you know, are you live on CICPAR? If so, you have to make sure all the connections are transferred as well. Right? And if not, maybe there's something, you know, maybe that's something they want to think about doing during their implementation, since they'll just be writing their new PIA as well.
That's a good point. On my screen over here, we will. This is what happens when you work from home. You end up with so many monitors everywhere. So yeah, Heidi, that's a good point. I will email Gord right now and just make sure that that's in there, because yeah, new PIA is needed for moving as well. I think we have a templated one for Med Access. I'm not sure if we have one for CHR, but do you know, Heidi, if we did one?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of discussion still occurring about that, because the OIPC's attitudes have changed somewhat over time as well. So I think there's discussion occurring about that, but they're trying to get a template going if they can.
Okay, let me talk to Gord, and I need to include Teresa probably. Cool. PIA and CICPAR.
Thank you.
No problem.
And then the other thing to make sure is done is all the e-delivery and the billing pieces.
Yeah, that's part of it, I know. But
yeah, all those other connections, because if the clinic forgets to apply for their BA numbers, that doesn't work so well.
Yeah, that's part of our checklist from the past. I remember that, but I'm sure PIA is, but I'm not sure about CICPAR. So I'll confirm that with Gord as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And it looks like we have some people dropping off. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we let Andrea and Susie go? And Andrea and Susie, lots of comments in the chat about how helpful this was today. So thank you.
Oh, good. And please, I really do encourage you to reach out to us. I way prefer talking to people than answering emails and sitting in meetings. So please call.
Wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining. And with that, we'll give you 3 minutes back. So hopefully you can get a bio break before your next meeting. And thank you, Andrea and Susie, so much. We really appreciated having you here.
Thank you for having us, guys. I really appreciate it. That was
Yeah,
really good.
thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.